I stood on my parents' porch with a homemade lasagna going cold in my hands, and through the screen door, I heard my father Robert say my name like I was a problem already solved. "Claire won't be an issue," he said, flat and certain as a signature on a contract. "She never says no to family." My mother, Barbara's voice came next, strained and thin. "But $300,000? That's insane, Jason. How did you even get into this?" My brother cut her off sharp. "It doesn't matter how. What matters is I need it handled before the federal audit goes deeper." "You promised you'd help." Then Robert again, calm as someone ordering coffee. "We will. Claire just got that promotion, remember? Senior analyst at that big firm downtown. She's probably pulling in 150 now, maybe more with bonuses. I should have moved, should have knocked, announced myself, made noise. Instead, I stood there frozen while they planned how to bleed me dry." Jason laughed, ugly and cold. "She still thinks we're a real family. It's almost pathetic. Inside that house, I'd driven 40 minutes to reach every single Sunday for 12 years. My family was turning me into their personal ATM, and they were laughing about it." Barbara sighed, and I could picture her rubbing her temples the way she did when she wanted sympathy. "She works so hard, always has." There was a pause, then her voice came back softer, like she was rehearsing. "We'll say it's for the roof, that leak in the upstairs bathroom. We can start with 30,000 maybe. Then later I'll tell her I need medical procedures, testing, something that sounds urgent." Jason didn't even let her finish the thought. "Spread it out over time," he said. "She'll give it. She always gives. Remember that business loan? 20 grand, no questions asked. Never even brought it up again." Robert made a sound that might have been pride. "She gave us her entire signing bonus when she got that first big job. $40,000. Just handed it over because we said we were struggling." Who does that? Someone who loves you, I thought, standing there with garlic and basil smell still clinging to my jacket. Someone who believed you loved her back. My hands started shaking, and the lasagna dish nearly slipped. I caught it, held it tighter, pressed it against my ribs like it could hold me together. Robert's voice continued, methodical as the instruction manual. "We'll space out the requests. Barbara, you know how to make Claire feel guilty. Cry if you have to. That always works." "I don't like lying to her," Barbara said, but her voice was weak, already giving in. "It's not lying," Jason replied. "It's family. Her money is family money anyway. She doesn't have kids, doesn't have a husband. What's she even spending it on? That apartment she's so proud of? She'll be fine. She always lands on her feet. That's what she does." Tax evasion, I thought, my mind finally catching up to what Jason had said earlier. Wire fraud, federal audit. My brother wasn't just in trouble, he was criminal, and they were going to make me pay for his crimes with money I'd earned working 70-hour weeks, pulling doubles during tax season, sacrificing everything they told me would make them proud. I stepped backward off the porch, careful, silent. The third step creaked under my weight, and I froze. But inside, they kept talking, voices rising and falling like they were discussing vacation plans. I made it to my car without braking, which surprised me. My legs felt disconnected from my body, like I was watching myself from somewhere above. The lasagna sat on my lap, still warm enough to burn through my jeans. I didn't start the engine right away, just sat there in the dusk watching their porch light glow yellow and welcoming, a lie I'd believed for 33 years. My phone buzzed. Text from Barbara. "Where are you, sweetie? Dinner's ready. We have something important to discuss." There it was. The roof. The script they'd written with me as the fool who'd funded all. My thumbs moved across the screen. "Sorry, Mom. Got called into work. Emergency audit. Rain check." 3 dots appeared immediately. "Oh no, can it wait? We really need to talk tonight. It's urgent." I stared at those words. Urgent, like my emergency was less real than their manufactured one. "Sorry," I typed. "Boss says I have to come in now. Love you." I didn't drive home. I drove nowhere, everywhere, past gas stations and strip malls and places that didn't know my name or how much I was worth to the people who were supposed to love me. The city lights blurred together, and I realized I was crying. not sobbing, just tears running down my face like my body was letting go of something my mind couldn't process yet. By the time I pulled into my apartment garage 2 hours later, the lasagna had gone completely cold. I left it on the passenger seat and walked upstairs with empty hands, and somehow that felt right. Inside my apartment, I didn't turn on the lights. Just stood by the window watching tree shadows move across the glass and felt something crack open in my chest. Not anger yet, just clarity, cold and sharp as January wind. I had given them $40,000 the year I graduated and lived on ramen for 8 months straight. I gave Jason $20,000 when his business collapsed and never asked what happened to it. I paid for their anniversary dinner, their car repairs, their everything, because I thought that's what family meant. But they never saw it as love. They saw it as access. Morning came too bright and too early, but I was already awake, already moving. I made coffee I didn't drink and opened my laptop with hands that had stopped shaking sometime around 3 in the morning when shock had finally hardened into something colder. I logged into every financial account I had, savings, checking, investments, that old retirement fund from my first job out of college. One by one, I transferred everything to new banks, institutions my parents had never heard of, accounts they couldn't trace. I called customer service lines and set fraud alerts, froze every access point, changed security questions to answers only I would know. Then I went through passwords, every single one, two-factor authentication, recovery emails, backup codes. I built a fortress around money I'd earned, and with every click, I felt myself disappearing from their reach. My phone rang 6 times before 9 in the morning. Barbara, Robert, Jason, Barbara again. I silenced it and watched the screen light up with their names like ghosts I was learning to ignore. Instead of answering, I emailed Margaret Cole, my boss, subject line simple: personal urgent, need advice. Margaret was in her 50s, sharp as broken glass, the kind of woman who'd walked through fire in heels and came out stronger. When I stepped into her office 20 minutes later, she didn't smile, just gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Talk," she said. So I did. I told her everything, the conversation I'd overheard, the money I'd given over 5 years, Jason's federal crimes, their plan to drain another $300,000 from me, and my plan to vanish financially speaking. She listened without interrupting, arms crossed, expression growing darker with every sentence. When I finished, she leaned forward. "First, you're handling this better than most people would. Second, you need a lawyer, not because you did anything wrong, but because they might try to twist this. Third, document everything. Every dollar, every request, every conversation." I pulled out my laptop and opened the spreadsheet I'd started at 4 in the morning. 5 years of transfers, dates, amounts, notes scribbled in margins. Jason's emergency, Mom's medical bills, Dad's car, anniversary dinner. On and on. Margaret whistled low. "That's nearly $200,000. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed up, and seeing it all laid out in columns and rows made it real in a way it hadn't been before. Then she looked at me, something almost gentle in her voice. "One more thing. We have an opening in our London office. Same title, 20% pay increase, full relocation package, and most importantly, an ocean between you and this mess." "London," I repeated, testing the word. "You wouldn't be alone," she said. "Full support, visa sponsorship, housing assistance, everything. You'd be set up before you even landed." I didn't answer, not yet, but something shifted in my chest, something that felt almost like hope. That afternoon, Jason finally broke through. I answered without thinking, maybe because some part of me wanted to hear how he'd justify it. "Jesus Christ, Claire, where have you been? I've been calling all morning." "Working," I said. "Flat. At that job, you think prints money. What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm busy." "What do you want?" "We need to talk. Family dinner tonight. Everyone's coming." "Can't," I said. "I have plans." "More important than family?" I didn't hesitate, the kind of plans where people don't scheme to steal $300,000 to cover federal crimes. Silence stretched across the line, heavy and thick. I don't know what you're talking about, Jason finally said, but his voice had changed, gone tight. Tax evasion, I said. Wire fraud. You were going to let me pay for it. Let them guilt me, manipulate me, bleed me dry so you could stay out of prison. You were listening. I was bringing dinner. I was bringing lasagna I made from scratch because I still believed we were a family. Silence again, longer this time. Claire, listen. It's not what you think. It's exactly what you think. You planned it. You told them to cry if they had to. You called me pathetic. I'm in serious trouble here, he said, and now his voice cracked, real fear bleeding through. You should have thought about that before you broke federal law. You're seriously going to let me go to prison over money you can afford? I closed my eyes. I couldn't afford the $40,000 I gave you right after college. I couldn't afford the 20 when your business failed. I couldn't afford any of it, but I gave it because I thought that's what love looked like. His breathing got louder. I'm begging you. Then beg someone else, I said, and hung up. The texts started immediately, dozens of them, paragraphs of desperation and rage and guilt wrapped in family language. I didn't read them. Wednesday afternoon, I was in the lobby of my firm when security called up. Your mother's here, they said, and she's insisting on seeing you. I found Barbara by the elevators, looking older than I remembered, hair uncombed, eyes red and swollen. She rushed toward me before I could decide whether to run. Claire, please, just talk to me. Please. We can talk, I said, keeping my voice level. Right here. Her face crumpled. Can't we go somewhere private? This is private enough. What do you want? Jason is in trouble. Real trouble. He could go to prison. I know, I said. Tax evasion, wire fraud, federal charges. That's what happens when you commit crimes. He made mistakes, but he's your brother. How can you be so cold? This isn't like you. You're right, I said. The old me would have already written the check. The old me thought love meant sacrifice. The old me believed you when you said family helps family without question. She looked up, confused and desperate. What are you saying? I'm saying the old me died on your porch Sunday night when I heard you plan how to manipulate me. Her hand reached out. I stepped back. You don't mean that. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking clearly for the first time in years. You weren't desperate. You were greedy, and there's a difference. We didn't know what else to do. You could have told me the truth. You could have respected me enough to ask honestly instead of scheming how to make me cry. She was crying now. Real tears, not the performative kind they'd planned. I left her there in the marble lobby under the gold letters of my firm's name, and I didn't look back. Thursday passed in silence. No calls, no ambush visits. I thought maybe they'd finally understood. Friday afternoon, I was packing files when reception called. Claire, there's a process server downstairs. He has legal documents for you. My hands went still. Send him up. He handed me a manila envelope. No words, no eye contact, just a signature, and he was gone. Inside was a formal complaint. My parents were suing me. They claimed every dollar I'd given them over 5 years had been loans, that I was now demanding repayment and causing them emotional distress and financial instability by cutting off contact. It was so absurd, I laughed right there at my desk, a hollow sound that didn't feel like it came from me. They weren't just trying to guilt me anymore. They were trying to destroy me. I called Rachel Foster, the attorney Margaret had recommended, scanned and emailed everything. She called back 8 minutes later. They have no case, she said, crisp and certain. No contracts, no documentation, no written agreements. This is textbook harassment and attempted extortion. Can we countersue? I asked. We could. Emotional distress, defamation, legal fees. We'd likely win. I paused. The idea sat wrong in my stomach. No, I said. I don't want their money. I just want them gone. There was a beat of silence. Understood, Rachel said. I'll file a motion to dismiss and send a cease and desist. If they continue, we'll pursue a restraining order. That weekend, I started packing for real, not just my apartment, but my entire life. I filled boxes with things I thought I'd keep forever. Cookbooks with Barbara's handwriting in the margins, framed photos from holidays where I'd been behind the camera, always watching, always documenting, never quite inside the frame. I wrapped them carefully, then left most of them by the dumpster. Sunday morning, unknown number. I answered without thinking. "You're really going to let me go to prison," Jason said. "No greeting, just accusation. I'm not letting you do anything. You're going because you committed federal crimes." "I could lose everything," he said, and his voice broke. "I already did," I said quietly. "My family, my trust, my belief that you loved me as a person instead of a resource." There was silence, then his voice came back smaller. I was scared. I didn't know what else to do. "You planned it," I said. "You laughed about me. You coached them on how to lie to my face. I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't think about me at all." "Claire, I'm begging you. Please. I already told you. Beg someone else. I'm done." I hung up and blocked the number. No more texts came after that. Monday morning, I stood in my half-empty apartment and looked at the life I'd built from nothing. Every piece earned, every inch fought for, every corner touched by people who now felt like characters in someone else's story. I found the lasagna pan in the back of a cabinet, tucked behind old baking sheets. Still. Clean. Still heavy. The one I'd carried that Sunday night, full of hope and cheese, and the belief that showing up meant something. I held it for a long moment, feeling its weight, then turned and dropped it into the trash. The sound wasn't loud, but it felt final. At the airport, boarding pass in hand, phone off, I got one last message before the screen went dark. From Barbara. "I'm sorry. Not for needing help, but for how we tried to get it. You deserved better. I hope someday you can forgive us." I stared at it, then typed back. "I hope someday you deserve forgiveness." Then I turned off my phone and walked toward my gate. 6 months later, the news came through Rachel. Jason had been sentenced, 18 months in federal prison for tax evasion, wire fraud, and attempted concealment of assets. Barbara and Robert sold their house to cover legal fees and lost most of it anyway. They were living with Robert's sister in Florida now, in a spare bedroom that used to be storage. I didn't feel satisfaction reading it. Not guilt either, not even anger. They were just names now, people I used to know and a version of myself I'd left behind. In London, the sky shifted constantly. Gray, then silver, then something almost warm. I had a corner apartment with exposed brick and a view of the Thames. I'd made real friends, colleagues who valued my mind instead of my bank account, people who showed up because they wanted to, not because they needed something. Sometimes on quiet Sunday mornings, I still made lasagna just for me, not because I missed them, but because I'd reclaimed it. The girl who carried her heart in a casserole dish and left it on their doorstep again and again, hoping they'd hand it back whole, she was gone. In her place stood someone different, someone who understood that love without respect is just debt in disguise, someone who knew that walking away wasn't cruelty, it was clarity, and sometimes the only person who truly shows up for you is you. I used to think showing up was enough, that if I kept saying yes and kept giving, eventually they'd see me. Not just what I could provide, but some people only love you as long as you're useful. And the moment you stop being convenient, you stop existing to them. I didn't leave to punish them. I left to protect what was left of me. If you've ever stood outside a door with something warm in your hands and heard the truth that shattered you, I see you. You don't have to explain why you stopped answering, why you didn't go home, why you walked away. You don't owe anyone an apology for choosing yourself. If this story resonated with you, drop a comment about a time you had to choose yourself over people who didn't value you. And if you want more stories about finding strength in impossible situations, hit that subscribe button because you deserve to know you're not alone in this.